Okay, well, thank you all for coming back. I want to talk about several topics today, including electrodes. I want to talk about cancer, and I want to talk about zeta potential. We'll start with the zeta potential, which is the primary characteristic of a colloid. A colloid, by definition, is a group of clusters or particles, and each particle contains a bunch of atoms, like 10 atoms, 20 atoms, each of which atom is contributing its electrical charge. That electrical charge on an atom is positive. So that silver, for example, and copper and zinc, they all have a positive charge on the atom. So that's an ion, is a positive charge. Now, when a bunch of ions get together, they form a cluster, and they wrap themselves around a layer or a membrane. And the outer surface of that membrane is negative, which is opposite to the internal, the core positive charge. So here we have a problem when we try to measure water conductivity. We've got some ions floating around that are positive and some nanoparticles floating around that are negative. So they kind of cancel each other. So the result, when you do a measurement with your conductivity meter, the conductivity meter will measure the balance between the two, between the plus and minus. So there's always more silver there than the meter would indicate. So the meter might show, say, 20 microsiemens of conductivity, but in fact, there might be twice that, 40 parts per million of actual silver. And the ions, as they float around, they take up energy, and they keep forming more nanoparticles. And the medical literature makes it very clear that the nanoparticles are far more effective than ions. So we want nanoparticles that have a good longevity. So to that end, many scientists are coating the nanoparticle with a kind of a varnish or resin. They call it a resin, and things like methyl cellulose, citric acid. Sometimes I use citric acid as a coating. It's a delicate coating, which doesn't harm the zeta potential like the other coats do. And this is another coating. Let me see if I can get it. Yeah, methyl cellulose, and another one is aloe vera, and these form a gel with the silver, colloidal silver, that is good for skin and topical application, or for skin disorders where you want the gel to stay in place and not evaporate off or get rubbed off. So that's, a lot of people are using the colloidal silver water and mixing it with these other gels to create skin lotions. Now, the problem with coating, particularly some of the more vigorous coatings like resins and varnishes, they diminish the zeta potential. Zeta potential is diminished, and that causes a problem, because if there's no or minimal zeta potential, then the nanoparticles hit up against each other. But when there is a zeta potential, there's a repulsion because of like charges, like negative charges repelling each other. So they stay separated like a flock of birds or fish. There's an optimal separation, even though they're functioning as a whole, holistic whole. So the coating does protect the nanoparticle and it makes it last longer, but it's relatively ineffective because the zeta potential, that electrical charge, is so important in a colloid and in the human body. And particularly now with these vicious viruses, the zeta potential acts like a machine gun or a laser beam with these high voltage accumulation zeta potential on the surface. And that zeta potential is capable of zapping the spike protein of some of these newer viruses. And you get maybe a 1,000 nanoparticles, like a murmuration of birds and drones, all are accumulating on the positively charged spike protein and zapping them, and then penetrating the virus and continuing to disable the virus inside the virus. So the zeta potential is very important. And you'll notice on a lot of the websites of colloidal silver, they don't mention zeta potential because it's not an easy property. Now, I have tests been done in professional laboratories that show not only zeta potential. Like this is a graph of several different colloidal silvers from other manufacturers, including my own. And the zeta potential on mine is the one that's up here. Up is minus 100 up to almost 150. That's a phenomenally high zeta potential. So it means that we have a very active, powerful colloidal silver. These other ones that are there are much less, like minus 20 millivolts of zeta potential, which is hardly qualifies them as a colloid. And many of the manufacturers claim that they have this high quality when in fact they don't. Now, one I want to show you is here is a relatively new one on the market. It's coated with a resin, like a varnish, and they're charging this obscene amount, $550 for an ounce, which works out at what can I read it? $17,600 per liter, which is and yet they have no zeta potential because all the nanoparticles are all crushed together and incapable of performing their function and going around in the blood into different organs, into the brain. So it's important to be aware. Now, on my website, I have a link to an important article about comparing these and how some of the best so-called best colloidal silvers on the market, such as this one, are criticized as being fake. They're not colloidal; they're ionic, and that is fake. And if you'll see, take a note of this number. All you have to do is put this number onto Google, and up will come this very important article from the National Institute of Health, where they've analyzed different colloidal silvers. So write that number down, put it in your URL, and then that article will come up. Very, very informative article. I want to talk a bit now, before we move on, about how important it is when you're putting electrodes into the generator. Hold the electrode down here so that it'll go in safely. don't hold the electrode away out here, it'll bend. And quite often this pin breaks off. This pin breaks off inside a generator. And it's a lot of work to have to remove the broken pieces and send it back to you. So be very careful when you're putting that in. Do it nicely and gently and with great care. Yeah, like that. And that's when you put it into the generator. I want to talk a bit about cancer. Lately, I've been encountering a lot of people with cancer. In fact, everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who has cancer. And I have to say that one of the most important sources of literature on this, on cancer, is how colloidal silver operates against cancer cells, kills cancer cells. So this $50 US book is worth buying from Steve Barwick. And this is the information from him, the silveredge.com. Although he's a competitor, he's done an amazing job on bringing all this literature and information together. So if you know anyone who has cancer, do them a favor and buy them this book, because it's shown now, well shown in the literature, that silver kills cancer cells, and so also does copper. So for cancer, you want silver and copper. When many people ask me, is there any reliable way of measuring the ppm of silver? And as I just said earlier, the conductivity meter is not that reliable, because it's trying to measure two opposite entities, and it gives a false reading. The best indicator of ppm or concentration is to taste it. I call it the taste test. Hold it in your mouth, swallow it, and you should get that distinct metallic taste at the back of your throat. Then you know you have at least 30 parts per million, and a very effective product. The other thing I want to mention is don't ever dilute your colloidal silver water. That kills the zeta potential, because the water that you're diluting is not charged water. It's not structured charged water, and it will deplete the zeta potential. The final topic is the size of the nanoparticle, and it's clear that nanoparticles of the smallest size have the biggest charge and they're more effective. Here again is a laboratory report. This one's from Nanocomposites company, showing that my nanoparticles have an average diameter of 2.5 nanometers, which by a coincidence turns out to be the diameter of the spike protein of the coronavirus. So you need that very small size to destroy the spike protein, to zap it and disable it. So I think that's all for today until we do the next video, but thank you for watching.